All right. Oh, so I turn my mic on. All right. Hey, we are moving into part three of our biochem, and that is focusing on this is the meat and potatoes. Okay, this is the big topic. This is the big thing to know, and that is this idea of cellular respiration. Okay, so this is going to be an important video. It's going to be an important process. We're going to spend, like I said, it's the main content from the unit here. So, cell respiration. Start off with a question. If you wonder what happens when you stop breathing, okay. Let me let me back that up. Why do we need to breathe so much? Is the question. Okay, what happens when we stop breathing? How long do you think you can go without air? Okay, if we were in person, we test this out. Test it on your own safely. Don't pass out. Usually first 30 seconds feels pretty good. That last 30 seconds, oh, it's kind of tough. A minute usually is kind of out when your body's going to say, you need to go breathe right now. You can go 3 minutes without air before some damage starts happening in your brain. Remember the rule of threes for your basic needs. You can go about 3 weeks without food. Now, that's going to vary a lot depending on how much you have saved up in fat reserves. You can go 3 days without water. It's also going to vary some, and you can go about 3 minutes without air. Okay. The record, believe it or not, is 22 minutes that you can stay underwater, or that someone has stayed underwater. That's not healthy. That's not natural. They're able to achieve this by a lot of training, by inhaling pure oxygen instead of this, 20% oxygen that you and I are breathing. They did it by hyperventilating. It's not a Normal human beings cannot do that without some damage in there. Link to the article down there if you want to check it out. But why exactly do we need to breathe? Oxygen is the reason why. Okay, we need oxygen, and we need oxygen for this reaction to happen. And we'll go through that today. So, cellular respiration is the set of metabolic reactions and processes that take place in the cells of organisms to convert biochemical energy. Stop right there. That's food from nutrients into adenosine triphosphate. We will always call that ATP, and then release waste products. So oxygen is the driver of this reaction of breaking down your food. And if you think about it, it's happening in almost every cell of your body, almost all the time. And so that is why there's such demand for oxygen. As living beings, we need oxygen in order for this to happen. Okay, so that's why you have to breathe, for this reaction to occur. Here is the chemical equation. All right, you should pause this. You should write this down. We're going to go through how this happens, but this is a good thing to know heading into this. Okay, you've paused it. You've written it down. This first bit, C6H12O6. That's a scary looking formula. That is glucose. All right, that is glucose that we've been talking about, the most basic form of sugar. So we start off with glucose. We add in 6 molecules of oxygen. Okay, O is oxygen, and remember, oxygen as a gas it bonds to itself, so it exists in that O2 phase. This is my attempt at an arrow. All right, it's not the best, but we add these things in and we get this stuff out. Okay, we get 6 CO2, which is carbon dioxide. That's the air you breathe out. That's carbon dioxide coming out mainly. We're gonna get 6 water, so 6H2O coming out of that. And then the big payout, this is why we do it, we get 36 ATP. So we take that one molecule of glucose and we're able to produce 36 ATPs. Remember, that's the little fuel packet that your body can run off of. I always think of it like, what do our houses run off of? Our houses run off of electricity. Okay, that's great. How do we get the electricity? We get it from coal, from solar, from wind, those kind of things. So that solar, wind, coal, etc., that's that glucose. What do we actually run our houses off? Electricity over here. Okay, so this process that's happening in the mitochondria is the process that happens in the power plant before sending the power to your house. Same thing here. It's happening in the mitochondria, and then it's going to send the power to the rest of the cell. Okay, so how is this achieved? Let's take a look at this. Oh, I put this in the wrong order. Okay. I'll go back to that slide. Huh? We completed in 3 stages. 3 stages. This is the order. Um, this process is um, uh, not absurdly complex, but it's extremely complex. If you take biology in college, you might break each stage down into 10 more different reactions that are going on. I've simplified it to what I think is important for us to know, and a summation of things here. So stage number 1, glycolysis. Write all of this down. This is going to be helpful for the test. So in glycolysis, it's going to occur in the cytoplasm of your cell. That's big. It's just once glucose gets into your cell, glycolysis is going to happen. We're going to put that glucose in. We bring it in via facilitated diffusion. And then you have enzymes in your cytoplasm that's going to snip that into pyruvate, which we just need to know that is a part of this process. It's a chemical formula. It's a derivative of glucose that is involved in this. And then at this stage, we're going to get 2 ATP out. All right, so we're going to get 2 ATP. And then we have kind of this intermediate compound here that we're going to pass along to the next stage. So we pull the ATP, we pass this pyruvate on to stage number 2. Stage number 2 is the citric acid cycle, or formerly known as the Krebs cycle, named after the dude that discovered it. This is going to occur in the mitochondria. So that pyruvate is going to move into the mitochondria. It needs oxygen to let it in. That's the simplest way that I can describe it, is it relies on oxygen to move it into that mitochondria. We know mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Oxygen is the key for us to get into it to unleash some of that power. So we put in oxygen at this stage. This is why you need to breathe to get that pyruvate into the mitochondria. It's going to go through a series of chemical reactions, and it is going to spit out our carbon dioxide, so CO2. It's going to spit out 2 more ATP, and that's going to have this intermediate thing again, and it's a bunch of electrons on this particular model, NADH. I couldn't even tell you what NADH stands for. It's this long acronym. We need to know that it is an electron carrier. It's a molecule that's really good at holding all these electrons on, that we're going to be using later. Remember, electrons are energy. And so here's our little battery that gets spit out from the Krebs cycle and then passed on to the 3rd cycle. And that 3rd cycle is going to be the electron transport chain. You'll also see sometimes oxidative phosphorylation in there. That's a big word. I'm just going to go with electron transport chain. So that's the 3rd step. Still inside the mitochondria, we are going to take those electrons from that NADH and we're going to dump them into this series of reactions. Lots of enzymes that are churning around, going through these chemical reactions. But we add in all those electrons from the NADH, and we're going to get water coming out of there as a byproduct. And then we're going to get 32 ATP. So that's the big payout right there, is we get a huge batch of ATP ready to go, ready to send out for your cell to do the work. Okay, so things that we have to know, and I'm going to stay on this slide for a little bit. Things that we have to know. You have to know these 3 stages. Okay, in that order: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, electron transport chain. You have to know that stage 2 and 3 are occurring inside of the mitochondria, and oxygen is the key that lets them in. We need to know that we start with glucose, and we need to know that we're going to have 36 ATP coming out, plus CO2 and water. And remember, pause this whenever you need to jot things down. Remember, these intermediate steps where we have pyruvate and we have electrons on our electron carrier, are those inputs and outputs? Sure, but they're more so just placeholders. It just, hey, it spits out of this cycle and then moves on to the next part of it. And so I don't really focus on those. I focus on those ones that we're bringing in from the outside and then we're pushing out from the inside there. So that is cellular respiration. Here's a picture of it. There are, if you there's like 4 pictures in this presentation. If you Google it, you're going to find hundreds of pictures. I think this one's probably the closest to information that I teach. Notice there's even a little bit of extra stuff in here. There's even a little bit of extra stuff in here because we're shipping some extra electrons over the top. That's okay. I don't care about that as much. I like it because it shows these two are happening inside of the mitochondria. It shows our glucose going to pyruvate, then getting dumped in. We have our electron carrier over here, and we're going to get ATP coming out of things there. So useful diagram. Heck, use that on the test. All right, that's an awesome diagram to have down in there. Moving on to my last slide that I tried to put in earlier. I'm not sure why. That is when we have plenty of oxygen. Okay, when you're probably sitting at your laptop right now, just like I'm sitting down here. My body is going through cellular respiration. There is no need. I'm not short on any oxygen. I can sit here all day and not be fatigued. My cells will be just fine because there's plenty of oxygen. That is not always the case in our lives. Sometimes you have to do things like run. I don't know. I've explained this before, but some of you joined kind of along the way here. My full-time job is I'm a college track coach, and so we talk about this actually a lot in track and field. If any of you guys are in sports, this is a big thing. When you push your body to the point where you start feeling that fatigue, you start feeling like you're out of air, it goes through another path, and that is called anaerobic respiration. Okay, that means we cannot get enough oxygen to our cells. So if you were to go outside and sprint as hard as you can, you and I both know that you can't do that very long. If you're in really good shape, maybe a minute. Okay, that's kind of whoa. And then at the end, you're gonna be laying on the ground, you're gonna be tired, you're gonna be wheezing. Why is that? Why can you only go for a minute if our processes are so efficient, if we have all this energy stored up? The problem is we can only go for a minute because that oxygen delivery system, your lungs, your bloodstream, can only work so efficiently. You have all the glucose in the world that you need, but oxygen can't keep up with the demand. And so we call that anaerobic respiration. What happens is with anaerobic respiration, only step one happens. Okay, only step one, glycolysis. It occurs in cytoplasm. You snip off a couple parts of the glucose, you get a couple of ATP, but then you get this pyruvic acid in there. And since there's not enough oxygen to push it into the mitochondria or all of it in the mitochondria, it starts to build up in there and it creates what's called lactic acid. Do I have yeah, there we go. Okay, so it creates this lactic acid that starts building up in your cells, and it cannot. You have to slow your demand for oxygen down in order to keep up there. So, like I said, we talk about it when we run the 400-meter dash. That's one lap around the track. It takes just under a minute to do it, and you rely heavily on your lactic acid system in order just to finish that race. And when you're done, your legs are burning. You can't breathe, because you have all this built up pyruvic acid that is turned into lactic acid as a result, because you're not able to get all of that pushed into all of your mitochondria efficiently. All right. Good news is your liver takes care of this perfectly fine. Just need a little rest, and it'll recycle it, and your cells will be perfectly fine. Okay, hey, that was a lot today. We'll go through fermentation at a different time. That was a lot today. Make sure that you are, this might be a PowerPoint or a video you have to watch a couple times. You have to stop and pause. You might have to watch it as you're completing today's assignment, but it is a big concept to know and something to be aware of for the future. Even got a little bit of track and field lesson in there. So make sure you guys have a good day.